Ira Stanphill was one of Christian music's most gifted and prolific talents of the 20th century. Born in Bellevue, New Mexico in February 1914, his parents had journeyed there by covered wagon from Arkansas. When Ira was 8, the family moved to Coffeyville, Kansas, where he spent most of his childhood. Raised in a musical home, he learned to play the piano, organ, accordion, and ukulele by the age of 10, and would later master the xylophone, guitar, saxophone, and clarinet. At 12 years old, Ira accepted Christ as his savior, and by 17, he was composing and performing his own songs in churches, revivals, and prayer meetings. At 22, he received a call to preach and was ordained in the Assemblies of God in 1939. He served as a pastor and music director across Oklahoma, California, and Texas before committing fully to evangelistic ministry. In addition to preaching, his services often featured his own music. Over the years, Stanphill preached across the United States and in more than 40 countries. A 1964 Crusade advertisement fittingly called him a preacher of old-time religion. Occasionally during his crusades, he would invite the congregation to suggest song titles. He would select one and write the lyrics and music during the course of the revival. One such example came during a Sunday morning service in 1945 in Kansas City. A member of the congregation suggested the title "Room at the Cross." That afternoon, Stanphill wrote the now famous hymn and introduced it that very evening. Years later, the song would play a part in saving a man's life at a tent revival in Stuttgart, Germany. There was a man in the audience who carried a gun with the intent of using it to take his own life later that night. God used the lyrics of "Room at the Cross" to so convict the man that he came forward and gave his heart to the Lord. Among the more than 500 songs he wrote, some of his most well-known include "Mansion Over the Hilltop," "Supper Time," "He Washed My Eyes with Tears," "Unworthy," and "Happiness is the Lord." But perhaps none came from as deep a well of personal sorrow and surrender as the song that would define his legacy, "I Know Who Holds Tomorrow." In 1939, Ira married Zelma, a musically talented woman he had met during one of his revival campaigns. Although they began in harmony, over time Zelma drifted from their shared ministry. She began singing in nightclubs, entered into relationships with other men, and battled personal addictions. Eventually, she filed for divorce and gained custody of their only child. Ira was devastated. He had tried to rebuild the marriage as it was falling apart, forgiving his wife over and over again for her adulterous lifestyle and assuring her of his faithfulness in spite of her transgressions. Everywhere he went, there were whispers, rumors, and pointed fingers. Some even believed he should step away from ministry altogether because of the stigma surrounding his divorce. But instead of defending himself or recounting what had gone wrong, Ira simply affirmed that he had made a vow before God to remain faithful to her as long as you both shall live. Now in his late 40s and working at Bethel Temple in Dallas, Texas, home of the Stamps Baxter School of Music, Stanphill was surrounded by talented composers but found himself too depressed to collaborate or write. During this dark season, he met Gloria, a joyful and devout Christian who loved music and children. Ira admired her, but made it clear he could not remarry. Though tempted to reconsider, he remained committed to the vow he had made, one that now seemed to stand between him and happiness. One morning, while driving to his office, he began to talk out loud to God. He wanted to know why he had to give up on love in order to continue his Christian service. It just didn't seem fair. As he continued to plead his case before the Lord, he felt increasingly sorry for himself. To Ira, there were only two choices: keep his promise to stay faithful, or go back on his promise, marry the woman he loved, and spend the rest of his life feeling guilty about it. As his despair deepened, he began humming a melody. Soon, he was singing a song about not knowing what was in the future, but realizing God was walking with him every step of the way. So moved by the thought of God taking every painful step with him, Ira rushed to a piano upon arriving at work and quickly completed the hymn, "I Know Who Holds Tomorrow." Though nothing about his circumstances had changed, he was filled with peace, trusting that God would provide. The song that comforted Ira in his sorrow has since brought encouragement to countless others who've faced their own unknowns, reminding them that even when the path is dark, the one who holds tomorrow walks beside them. A few months later, Ira's ex-wife died in a car accident. He and his son began building a new life together, and not long after, he reconnected with Gloria. Within a few months, they were married and faithfully served the Lord side by side until Ira's passing in December of 1993. For over 6 decades, the music of Ira Stanphill has ministered to hearts around the world, and its impact is far from over. His legacy continues to remind believers that even in our darkest hours, we can sing with faith because we know who holds tomorrow.